Hi, in this video we're going to look at retiring at 55. We're going to look at 3 case studies, one of which is significantly better than the other 2. So the advantages of retiring at 55 are, well, first of all, you've got no need for an ISA at present because you can take your pensions at 55. So you can potentially retire using work pensions, your self-invested personal pension and state pension. You're not too young so that you'll run out of cash or get bored in retirement, and you're not too old such that you can't fully enjoy life. And a key advantage is that you can recycle funds into your and your partner's SIPP just before you retire, and that way you'll know you'll get the benefits and you won't be worried about changes to government legislation. So I'm going to look at some case studies. They all involve just one person at the age of 55. We've got 3% inflation, stock market returns after product and platform fees are 6%, which is pretty much in line with what some of the forecasts going forwards are. They get a full state pension with 35 qualifying years, lifetime allowance just over $1 million, fixed until April 2028, then growing by 3%. The pension tax-free cash is 25%, but it's always capped at 25% of the lifetime allowance. And the desired expenditure that we're modelling in retirement is after tax. So if you want to spend £40,000, that's exactly what you get after tax. So scenario 1, person has £1 million of pension assets, and don't worry if that's nothing like what you're going to retire on. I'm just using this as an example to show some of the issues that come up. We're going to use a thing called UFPLS, which just means that they're going to take the tax-free cash every year as they go along, and they want after-tax expenditure of £42,000 until they're 80, and then they'll take £31,500. So what's interesting is people think £1 million is a lot of money, but £42,000 to live off is maybe not so much. So there's a bit of a quandary there in terms of how much you want to save and the lifestyle you want to live. So now we're looking at the expenditure of this person and the taxes they're paying. So this is the 42k, and then the yellow bit on top is tax, goes up and then comes down once they hit 80. They're initially paying a 20% marginal tax rate. It then flips up to 40% for a couple of years. That's because they've run out of the 25% tax-free on their pension because they've taken so many benefits from it. So sources of income, okay, fairly obvious. So now scenario 2. Person has £1 million worth of pension assets, but they use flexible access drawdown, and they take the maximum tax-free cash in the first year. After tax expenditure is the same, and what's going to happen is they're going to be paying more income tax spread over many years rather than this lifetime allowance hit when they're 75. So here's the expenditure and the tax. So initially there's no tax because they are living off the tax-free cash and they're sort of funneling it into an ISA. Then they start to pay tax, sometimes at the 40% rate, and then when they reduce their expenditure at age 80, they drop down to the 20% rate of marginal income tax. And then this is the sources of income. So bang, 250k. It's nice to have, but don't spend all of it. And the temptation for a lot of people is to do just that, to get an extension or a new kitchen, some amazing holidays, and then they're jeopardizing their future life. So if you've got the discipline, then maybe it's a good idea, but if you're just going to see that money sitting there and want to spend it, then it might not be for you. So the wealth ends up being about £86,000 better off at age 90 in today's money, which is pretty good, but yeah, you do have to wait a long time for those benefits to really materialize. And here we've got, they've got some taxable investments and a bit of ISA because of the £250,000 tax-free cash and what they had to do with that. So yeah, we don't get this dramatic tail off in wealth at age 75. And here again, the investment returns. The initial tax-free cash helps in the early years, but there is quite a large income tax impact going on here. So scenario 3 is pension assets of £500,000 and ISA of £500,000. We're going to use UFPLS and just take the pension every year. Required after tax expenditure is the same, and we're going to reap the benefits of having actually put more money initially into our retirement assets. So here's the expenditure and the tax paid, and initially we're not paying any tax. We take from the SIPP, but only up to our personal allowance plus an extra 25% that we're allowed, and then the rest comes from an ISA, and it's only once the ISA has run out that we then really start to draw down on the SIPP in earnest. So yeah, here we've got it as sources of income, tiny little bit of SIPP as the pension kicks in, and then there's the ISA lasting quite a long time. So the wealth profile, it actually just keeps on growing and growing year after year. So they're much better off if they can get to this sort of scenario where you've got the 50-50 mix of SIPP and ISA. So if we compare it again to the first scenario, this one's in danger of running out of cash, but the first one is always absolutely fine. When they look at the balances on their wealth, they always see some really nice numbers. So my summary is that the lifetime allowance is just not that well understood, and more people will pay it in the future, but they're just not aware of it. Outcomes in retirement can vary wildly. Taking tax-free cash at 55 to avoid a bill at 75 is not without its risks. If the lifetime allowance is increased because so many people are retiring early because they don't want to pay it, you might find that having taken the tax-free cash and paid a lot of income tax didn't actually work out that well for you, and nobody really knows what is going to happen. But what you need to do is plan your finances now to optimize your asset allocation. So putting into a SIPP is great if you're getting the 40% tax back, maybe not such a good deal if it's only 20%. So to plan your finances, you can either use a spreadsheet that you can get from myself, and I'll coach you through it, make sure you've got a great solution, or you can use a black box from a wealth planner or independent financial advisor. I can tell you one is significantly cheaper than the other, and just to show you what the model looks like, here it is. So it's just a spreadsheet, it's infinitely customizable, you can do anything you like with it, run scenarios to your heart's content, and you own the spreadsheet, you own the data, so you can keep running scenarios. At present, the tax bands are going to be frozen till 2028, so you hardly need to touch it for the next 5 or so years, and you can get some great value from this. And if you want to contact me, you can look me up, Ian Shadrack, on LinkedIn. The email is ianshadrack@gmail.com.